Good morning and welcome back to the Haven Financial Group radio show. I'm Larry Colvig, founder and CEO of the Haven Financial Group. Again, thanks for listening. We have Glenn Ramey on with this segment talking about insurance, the need for or not the need for, what you should be looking at, maybe what you shouldn't be looking at. Great to have you, Glenn, and of course, Kim as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to see you, Glenn. We wanted to talk about insurance and the role that it plays when it comes to fixed income in retirement. First thing I guess I have to ask you is, what is that role? How important is it, or maybe not important, for someone who's on a fixed income in retirement?
Yeah, so I would say, depending on where they're at, it could be very important in protecting what that person or that family has worked very hard to accumulate into their retirement, to make sure that there is nothing left at the end of that retirement to pass down to their heirs, right? So it's about how important it is to pass down anything to our heirs would determine how important that insurance should be for us.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the different kinds of insurance that we're talking about. And the first that comes to mind for me is long-term care insurance.
Yeah, the fun one no one wants to talk about.
Right.
I've shared these statistics before. I'll share them again today with you. I think these are statistics that people should know, right? That of us all, 70% of us, 3/4 of us, are expected to have some assistance needed prior to passing away. 50% of us will spend time in a nursing home. And that average stay in a nursing home is 3 years. And today, median cost in my own state has now got to $10,000 per month, or $120,000 for a full year of care cost, right? Have we prepared or put that into the retirement budget to make sure that that's something we can afford when we could be expecting $360,000 or more in long-term care costs?
That's a lot of money. And that's certainly a lot of money for someone who is in retirement, and very possibly, I would kind of assume, has been in retirement for a while. So, I would say on average, most of those people have been in retirement for a while. So how do you go about providing those dollars? Let's talk it through.
Yeah, so obviously self-funding is always an option. I can use my own money to pay for it. I hope you're prepared for the cost and plan for it. I know that some individuals are going to look to their family members to be caregivers. I always kid around. I hope they've talked to those family members about that and they're aware of that. And if we don't like those two options, there's always the state paying for us when we run out of money. Right. And if we don't like that option, then we got to prepare. We got to plan for this. And we're going to do that through insurance options. And those insurance options could be defined as traditional long-term care insurance, something that most people would be familiar with. And one of the few options in long-term care planning that provide asset protection against Medicaid, to make sure that there is something left for your family, even if your resources were to be depleted trying to pay for care. For those that are saved a little better for retirement, there's options like life insurance policies that can have riders connected to long-term care, hybrids that combine traditional life insurance and long-term care policies together into one product, or even long-term care annuities or asset-based long-term care that can reposition your savings without sacrificing it to be leveraged against those long-term care bills if they're needed.
When I think of long-term care insurance, immediately I think of very large bills. Is that true?
Well, it depends, right? It depends on how much of that care you're trying to fund. We like to say you could fully fund care if you want to through insurance. And yes, you're probably going to pay a significant amount of premium to have something like that in place. But the reality is most of us don't need to fully fund that care to still have the benefit of having insurance in place. Either bridging the gap of what we have in expendable income to what we need to cover the cost of long-term care, or strategically set up to make sure that there's going to be preserved assets to pass down to our heirs upon our passing, even if our resources normally would not have been able to stay in the long-term care event. I've seen premiums as low as $50 a month for someone, and as high as $1,000 a month, depending on what someone's trying to do for themselves for care. So it's just about how much you want to protect. How much is your appetite for this planning and protection?
Glenn Ramey is our guest. He is an insurance expert at Haven Financial Group. So, Glenn, for our listeners who are just wondering a little bit further about long-term care insurance, what kind of thing does that cover? Can you get insurance that takes care of in-home care, or is that automatically for a nursing home? Or can you differentiate?
Yeah, very good question. And you can. And it is something you should actually be very attentive to any type of insurance option you're using for long-term care and understanding what bills it's going to pay for, as that's where a lot of confusion can happen at the time of using it and not feeling like it did what you wanted it to do for you, right? Most long-term care policies today, though, do cover an entire gambit of services, whether that be a home health aide, a nurse coming to your home to help you. That could be adult daycare, someone helping you but has day jobs. They drop you off in the morning and they pick you up when they're done with work, and you're cared for at that adult daycare facility during that time. Insurance would help cover that cost. It could help cover the cost of an assisted living facility. So I don't need full-time care, but it's nice to have some on-call care when needed, right? Assisted living or full-time nursing home care cost. Most policies are going to cover all of those features for you, but the ones that you got to be careful about or see if they cover are homemaker services. Because being in your home isn't just about the person giving you medications or helping you lay down and stand up or in and out of the bathroom or the shower, right? It's who's going to make meals for you and do your dishes. Who's going to clean the house for you and do some light housekeeping for you, right? How is that going to be paid for? Because that's going to be an indirect cost you're going to incur when you can't do those activities on your own. I use an example of my wife's aunt when she was passing away on oxygen, right? She was at home receiving home care because she didn't want to be in a facility yet, but she could not sustain those activities. Doing laundry while on an oxygen tank was a chore for her, and having someone in there to help with those things was important, and making sure your insurance might cover those costs for you would be an important feature to pay attention to when doing long-term care insurance.
All of these things, it sounds a bit overwhelming, but all of these things that you can answer, Glenn, if people come in to visit, because it does feel very overwhelming as someone who's never had or needed long-term care. For sure.
Yeah, overwhelming, intimidated by cost, right? And not understanding the options. I can't count how many people will come in and have a conversation with me and have no idea of all the options that are available. And oftentimes we'll find one that fits what they would like to do for planning that doesn't have the drawbacks or downsides that have made them avoid planning in the first place.
Let's talk
Kim,
about
if I could,
sure.
Kim,
Go
if
ahead
I could
there.
add
Sure.
a takeaway from this segment, I would say is if you're listening and you haven't had a conversation about long-term care, or maybe you're listening and 10 years ago you got scared away by a traditional long-term care and nobody could afford it in their right mind anyways, then come on in and visit with Glenn. Look at all the options that are out there, asset-based long-term care. There's hybrids, different than the traditional long-term care. If you have some life insurance policies that you have not had reviewed in years, it'd be a good time to get a life insurance review. There's no cost for anything that I'm describing here. Or maybe you look at your legacy is important, and life insurance retirement plans, LIRPs, very popular these days. And if that's for a foreign term to you, maybe it's good that you come in and visit about these things. So people get scared from insurance, and maybe we like to dislike big insurance companies for whatever reason, but they are the companies that can give you some guarantees, and they're the only companies. So explore all your options, and at Haven, and with Glenn and Isabella that do that at our office, we have all the options. We're just going to lay them out for you.
Sure. Well, let me just ask Glenn, one more series of questions here regarding life insurance. I think in the old days, life insurance was either term or, you just bought your life insurance and you died and it paid out and that was that. Life insurance has changed quite a bit, and there are a lot of other options now, correct?
Absolutely. Not only do you have term insurance, rent it for those working years to cover those liabilities when your kids are young and you have income to replace if you pass away prematurely and debts that you want to do, but also reasons that we have life insurance into retirement, whether that be part of legacy planning and gifting upon our death, whether that be part of income planning when that first Social Security check goes away and one of us is on our own with only one of those checks to deal with. Or again, as Larry just mentioned, part of a long-term care plan. But I also want to point out something that Larry brought up a moment ago, which is that life insurance review. So speaking to anyone out there that has already bought life insurance, that has a permanent type of whole life or universal life insurance policy, and the importance of those policies being reviewed periodically to make sure that they're funded properly and they're sustaining themselves. And there's not a trap door in the future that's going to have us find out at 82 that our insurance policy is lapsing on us because we didn't pay attention to what was happening inside of it.
Sure. Is it difficult for people who are in retirement to get life insurance?
Not necessarily. I mean, life insurance obviously is a health underwritten product, right? So our health is definitely a factor, but at the same time, mortality tables have been changing over time, right? We live longer than we did 20 or 30 years ago. And that factor has reduced the cost of insurance. So I've had plenty of scenarios where in a review, I found an unsustainable life insurance policy for someone, isn't gone yet, but is definitely on that path. And they've been able to redo that policy without really changing how much they're paying per month for their insurance or how much death benefit they have for that dollar they're spending. And in some rare, great circumstances, we've even been able to improve upon those policies, giving more death benefit for the dollar that they're spending or giving them the same insurance with a lower cost and more security.
Glenn, most important thing that people should take away from this conversation?
Reviewing your insurance that exists and having a conversation. Again, I'd say the latter part, having that conversation, making sure that these things have been discussed, that they're either going to work within your plan or not, but that you've had a conversation about them. And they're not topics you're avoiding because we don't like the potential outcome of the conversation.
Absolutely. Glenn Ramey, thank you so much. The number is 612-504-8400. That's how you get a hold of the folks there at Haven Financial Group, or you can go to havenfinancialgroup.com. All right. Coming up next, we're going to look at budget strategies to address inflation that exists today. This is the Haven Financial Group Radio Show.